When faced with a traumatic experience, the psyche's typical response is to retreat from the site of injury. If withdrawal is not an option, a portion of the self must be withdrawn, leading to the fragmentation or dissociation of the integrated ego. Dissociation is a natural aspect of the psyche's defenses against the potential harm of trauma, as demonstrated by Jung's word association test. Dissociation is a self-deceptive mechanism employed by the psyche to enable survival by dividing the unbearable experience and distributing it across various compartments of the body and mind, particularly the unconscious aspects. Consequently, the usually integrated aspects of consciousness, such as cognitive awareness, affect, sensation, and imagery, are not permitted to merge, resulting in a discontinuous experience. There may be a dissociation between mental imagery and affect, or both the affect and image may be dissociated from conscious knowledge. Individuals may experience flashbacks of sensation without any apparent contextual basis. Due to the interruption of trauma, there may be gaps in one's memory, and a complete life story cannot be narrated. When an individual undergoes intense emotional pain, dissociation as a defense mechanism may allow them to continue their external life, but at a significant internal expense. Although the external trauma may have ended and been largely forgotten, the psychological aftermath of the trauma persists and manifests itself through certain images that are associated with intense emotions referred to as feeling tone complexes, as Jung has shown. These complexes tend to act independently as menacing inner entities and appear in dreams as hostile foes, savage animals, and so on. In his only essay explicitly about trauma, Jung wrote, "A traumatic complex brings about dissociation of the psyche. The complex is not under the control of the will, and for this reason, it possesses the quality of psychic autonomy. Its autonomy consists in its power to manifest itself independently of the will, and even in direct opposition to conscious tendencies. It forces itself tyrannically upon the conscious mind. The explosion of affect is a complete invasion of the individual. It pounces upon him like an enemy or a wild animal. I have frequently observed that the typical traumatic affect is represented in dreams as a wild and dangerous animal, a striking illustration of its autonomous nature when split off from consciousness." Jung was initially unclear about the nature and functioning of dissociative mechanisms responsible for complex formation in his early experiments. However, subsequent research with patients suffering from dissociative disorders have shown that dissociation is not a passive process where different parts of the mind simply become disconnected and drift apart. Rather, it appears to involve aggression, with one part of the psyche actively attacking other parts. In a way, the normally integrative tendencies of the psyche must be forcefully interrupted. As splitting is a violent and explosive process, akin to the splitting of an atom, this reality curiously escaped Jung's notice. Despite his understanding that traumatic affect may appear in dreams as a wild animal, he did not incorporate violent affects into his understanding of the psyche's primitive defenses. In contrast, modern psychoanalysis recognizes that where there is violent aggression in the inner world, primitive defenses are also present, and we now know that the energy for dissociation stems from this aggression. Essentially, the malevolent figure traumatizes the internal world of objects to prevent re-traumatization in the external world. If this interpretation is accurate, it implies that a traumatic image oversees dissociative processes in these patients, recalling Jung's earlier belief that fantasies can be just as traumatic in their effects as actual traumas. To put it differently, complete pathological trauma necessitates both an external event and a psychological factor. External trauma alone cannot divide the psyche. An internal psychological agent triggered by the trauma causes the division.